Welcome to Bicycle Touring Talk, episode 65. My name is George Zlatin.
The one and only.
This video is part of the Coast to Coast Across Canada series. The last time I left off in Princeton, British Columbia. I had made it there late in the day after an odyssey from the Coquihalla Highway across a maze of rough gravel trails that even included pushing through knee-deep water and 2 flat tires. Now it was Friday morning and I had just about 120 kilometers to go to Penticton, a beautiful town situated between 2 lakes. I was to meet Barbara there so we could ride the best part of the Kettle Valley Trail together. I wasn't really sure anymore if this was a good idea, given how rough the trail had been up to Princeton. I also wasn't sure about the stretch I had ahead of me that day, and if I could even cover the distance to Penticton in one day. Why take the KVR in the first place? For one, I had been dreaming of a trail far away from the cars to ride my bike without the worry about getting run over and without traffic noise. But there's another reason. The KVR is basically a decommissioned rail line converted into a trail. Old trains are not typically good at climbing hills, so the way this route was designed, the climbs were long and subtle. Don't forget, this was a trip across the Canadian Rockies, big mountains with a lot of steep climbs. It was essential for me to check out of the hotel early. I stopped by a grocery store and a Radio Shack to get another memory card for my action camera. Breakfast was a sandwich in front of the grocery store. I just didn't have time to do it properly.
Well, it's shortly after 9 o'clock. In Princeton, I just stocked up on groceries, and now I'm heading to Penticton, which turns out it's still about 100 kilometers on the trail, and so we'll see how that works out. Might be rough, might be easy, who knows.
The trail started off okay in Princeton. For a stretch the surface was even paved, but the further away from the town I got, the rougher it became. At the beginning, it was still a good ride. The weather was awesome, and there were even a few other cyclists. This was a good sign. However, when I briefly talked to them, it didn't seem like anyone was really going too far away from Princeton. I was hungry early on and took advantage of a roadside canopy at Jura, not very far in for an early lunch.
Lunchtime. I'm at Jura station on the KVR between Princeton and Penticton. Much further to Penticton than Princeton right now. I gotta get to Penticton, and it's gonna be quite a long trek. It's a slow incline ever since I left Princeton, and it's gonna be for about half the way. So I gotta eat something and build up my strength again here.
As I was sitting there, chewing on my sandwich, a kid on an ATV passed by doing easily 80 kilometers per hour. I was now eating his dust along with my whole wheat bread and salami.
Guy just came by here probably doing, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 clicks on ATV. I'm still breathing the dust. Holy shit.
ATVs are the vehicles of the devil. They're basically designed to destroy natural terrain and turn it into bouncy trails. They'll turn a good trail into a bouncy trail too. More on that later. After that, I figured I was going to ride hard and long and make it all the way to Banker. It was up to that point that the ride was supposedly uphill. But the second half, all the way to Summerland and Penticton, was mostly downhill. So the ride was going to get a lot easier after that point. After Jura Station, the trail just got worse and worse. It was obvious once again that ATVs were the main users of it. It might be okay to ride the section with a full suspension bike, but with a loaded touring bike, I would not recommend it. It was literally painful to ride. My speed was down to a crawl, and once again I was worried about not getting to Penticton before the end of the day. There was a neat tunnel and a trestle along the way. The trestle with its wooden surface was actually a big relief from the ride on the rough sandy gravel. In spots it was so bad that it took considerable effort just to keep the bike moving because of the unstable trail surface. I left the original audio on this footage because you can actually hear the tires losing traction.
Almost 38 kilometers for today, mostly on this trail, except maybe 2 or 3 kilometers in town, and can't wait to get off this. This totally sucks. It's just bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and spinning your wheel because there's no traction because the gravel is too loose. This is not a good bike trail.
Finally, just outside of Banker, the trail was crossing a paved road. The road seemed to go in the same rough direction as the trail, but ultimately I couldn't be sure. Did I care at this point? Nope.
Okay, so I have the chance here to get off the trail and get on the road, and I think I'm gonna do it. Even though I'm not quite sure where this road goes, but by my map, it sort of runs alongside the trail, and it should get to Summerland and then to Penticton, which is where I'm trying to get. On the trail, the best I could do right now is maybe an average of 7 or 8 kilometers an hour, and it's starting to hurt all my back and my joints and everything. You know, so the road looks pretty nice. And I don't think there's a lot of traffic here, so I'm just going to give it a whirl. Getting tired of this trail. I wish they weren't doing this. See, if you look closely there, that looks like a handlebar for a bicycle. So they recommend this for bicycles. It's unbelievable. It's barely rideable.
I simply decided to take the road and figure out where it would take me along the way, even if it meant steeper climbs and a detour. Just riding on a smooth surface was such a treat. My speed almost doubled as soon as I was on that road. The trail made no sense at this point. There was no traffic to speak of here. It was awesome for at least a few minutes. As I was rolling through the village, I got to a point where the paved road turned to gravel. Now what? Well, there was a local guy puttering around in front of his house. I asked him about where the road was going and what the condition of it was. He told me that it was the better alternative for a while, even as it was gravel. But further down, the trail would be much smoother and easy to ride, while the road would have some hairpin curves. There was a canyon, and the trail would go right through, while the road was going around the long way.
Got a sign here says Summerland 46 kilometers. That proves that I made the right decision. It's a gravel road, but it's way better than the trail. And a gentleman back there told me that after about 20 kilometers on this road, there's access to the trail again. And he said the trail in that area has a new surface, is much better to ride, and It's less hilly than the road, so...
I was also told that the local ATV riders were the only ones who maintained the trail, while the government took all the credit. This may well be true. Have you seen the recent ads on YouTube about the Trans-Canada Trail? Well, the KVR is part of that. It is not maintained well enough for most bicycles. There seems to be no funding for it, but an advertising budget is apparently always available, promising a great trail that is really not much of a trail at all. Following the gravel road for about 20 kilometers seemed to put me back on track, and it restored my hope of actually making it to Princeton. I probably would have stayed on that road, but decided to take the advice I had been given and opted for the trail once again further down.
I mean, yeah, I've reached the part that's supposed to have a new surface, and I was given the advice to take the trail here because of the subtle grade. Guy said, "Oh, you want to be in the canyon," he said, instead of on the road because it goes like up and down like crazy. Yeah, the surface, I don't know, it doesn't look that great, but I'll try it for a bit, I guess.
The trail surface was much smoother here, and it was now mildly descending the whole way. Those two facts alone made all the difference. I had no problem maintaining a speed of over 20 kilometers on average, which is pretty good for a gravel trail. However, the ride wasn't without obstacles. Summerland is a cute little town. There was an old railway station, and the trail actually veered away from the old rail line for a stretch. This became a problem when it suddenly ended and left me in a local street with no real indication of where to go next. I had to ask local people about how to find the rest of the trail to Penticton. It seemed like I was wasting a lot of time again, until I found this bridge.
Well, I had a bit of a run around to find the trail again, but now I think I got it. Yeah, in Summerland, you get too lost.
The sun was about to set by the time I had made it through Summerland. The rest of the way to Penticton is a blur in my memory, but I know that I was on a roll, partially propelled by adrenaline. The trail had its rough spots, and at one point I nearly got run over by a teenager on an ATV. I remember getting lost on my way into town and having to backtrack in the dark. Barbara had booked a room for us at the Days Inn. I had the address and was also able to text her to let her know I had made it and was going to arrive within minutes. This was a big relief and a sweet reunion. The comfort of a hotel room and Barbara's company were the best remedies for my aches and pains from another rough day of cycling on the KVR. The plan was to spend an extra day and relax. The hotel had an outdoor pool and the weather was absolutely gorgeous for late May. Then on Sunday, we were going to ride the next part of the KVR together. Up to that point, Barbara had not ridden her bike much that year. Merely thinking about the ride I had just completed had me worried about how she would fare. From Penticton on, the trail was going to ascend, very subtle but constant. This, combined with the potentially rough trail surface, could make for a very challenging ride. How long was Barbara gonna last? How was she gonna get back to Penticton after our ride to retrieve her car? We had no clue, but we were determined to not let this stop us. Well, more about this in episode 66, probably here next weekend. In typical YouTuber fashion, I'd like to ask you if you liked this video. Yes? So then you'll click the like button? Awesome! Thanks and see you soon. You might also like some of my other videos, like those on the screen right this moment. Awesome.